On January 26, 2021, Kevin Cow released a small fan game called Smol Ame on itch.io, a 2D platformer using Smol Ame fan art made by LoFi of the VTuber Amelia Watson from Hololive EN. And the premise of the game?
So let's review some useful skills. Ground pound! To smash blocks or enemies below you or to flatten out bumps in the road, nothing beats a ground pound. That's funny, because you guys know that's actually what I did to your mom last night.
To pound mom. On its release, the game gained a lot of exposure on both Twitter and the Hololive subreddit. Not only was it one of the first playable and good Hololive fan games, Holo EN was getting very popular quickly. My name is Riceboy, or Rice. I've known about the game since its release and been part of this game's speedrunning community since day 3. I'm not much of a content creator, but since the second anniversary of Smol Ame is coming up soon, I thought about doing something special. Welcome to the world record progression of stage 1 of Smol Ame. This is Ame's Office Any%. Before I get too deep into the history of the community and the runs, I would like to explain what made the game so speedrunnable in the first place. Let's take a look at the gameplay first. Well, you can move to the left and right, you can jump, but most importantly, you can ground pound. On a regular surface, this just results in you getting down quickly. On a bouncy surface, however, it results in a bounce. This gives you more height than a regular full jump. Ground pounding on the edge of a bouncy platform results in an edge bounce. Instead of going up, you would go diagonal. Next, the game has a timer. The timer is really what made this game so competitive. After finishing a level once, you were bound to retry again, and then again and again, and obviously, people love to share their times in games. For reference, this is what a regular walkthrough looks like. Now, let's get into the good stuff. The first documented time, the first world record of Ame's Office, was at 18.257 by Hexwolf. It was a decent run. Already there was skips to save time, edge bouncing to move forward quicker, edge bouncing here when you intended to bounce up there, but most importantly, the first major named skip in the game, plant skip. You see, you're intended to use the plant and the planes to get over the gap. But ground pounding onto sloped surfaces makes you slide across. This little jump gave Hexwall extra height, which results in extra speed needed to cross this gap in a single big jump and retain enough speed to get to the mom button without needing to walk. Plant skip saves an incredible amount of time, and it was super simple. Pinkie lowered the record to 17.77, and Dupito's 16.478 would already change the route a little. Instead of edge bouncing here, he would edge bounce on the diagonal. The tilt of the platform gave the bounce a lot more horizontal speed than on an even platform. This way, you could reach the second bookshelf in one bounce. The next few world records would look just like this. Rice Farmer, Pinkie, Nomiko and TripTech lowered the record from 16.78 all the way down to 14.628. Around that time, Pinkie and Scurvy created a Discord, specifically for players of Smol Ame, inviting Kevin into the server as well. It basically was the official Discord for the game, even being linked on the itch.io page. And now, a new version was released, 21.128.2. That's the date it was released. The first new record would be Nom Nom, a 14.131, and it was big. Baba bounces were now relevant. But what are Baba bounces? Similar to edge bounces, you would be sent flying by bouncing on the edge of a platform. You just needed to bounce even more on the edge. The result was a bounce that gave you a lot more horizontal speed. Kevin thought about fixing the bug. Pinkie wanted him to keep it, and thank God he did. And now, enter Danger Mad. The game finally had a proper leaderboard. No more images shared on Twitter. A Google spreadsheet was made. You fill out a Google form and your run would then be approved by a mod, usually Pinkie. The other big change for speedrunning was Danger Mad discovering how to jump. But first, let's talk about insta bounces, or instas for short. Normally, you can only ground pound in mid-air. The animation after initiating a ground pound takes a quarter of a second, and then you would start your pound. Instas ignore both. While standing, if you time your pound after pressing jump correctly, you would not just get a bounce, but also skip the animation on top of it. This is pretty basic stuff nowadays, but back then it was massive for runs. Now, let's take a look at Danger's runs. A few hours after Nom Nom, Danger got his first world record, a 14.107, just slightly better than Nom Nom. It wasn't too different, but it included 2 instas, on the first book stack and on this platform. This would be the basis for a lot of future records. Following his first record, Danger would go on an incredible streak. 13.77, the first run to include a BB on the first book stack, allowing him to get the BB here much earlier. 13.649, the first run with a BB that made it all the way to the lowest platform, which is required in later records. 12.834, finally sub 13, and he used the book stack instead of the platform to jump. Within under 2 days, he himself lowered the record 9 times, all the way down to a 12.582. Later, this jump here would be named Danger Jump. Holodive beat him once, and then I did. At the time, there were discussions of even more potential time saves, but nothing would lower the time as much as Danger Jump did. Not until much later. And then a new version came out. A version that messed up the cycle for this platform. Here's proof I made after I noticed it, and it was a free time save. Danger and I both got 12.2 easily, and the next day it was fixed again. This was basically ignored. Anyway, 0203 released. Nothing major, new records simply due to a leaderboard reset, and then came 0204. The last version with the old mechanics. Once again, we all tried to get the record down to what it used to be. Lots of trades between Pinkie, Danger and me. In between, Psycho and Prodigy would also get world records. Then I learned to walk. Our timing to BB is limited by the height of this platform. It was difficult to find the right balance of low enough angle for high speed, but a high enough angle to still be able to danger jump and not hit the book stack. But what if you changed the height of the platform? By walking from left to right and getting a walking BB without setup, the platform would tilt less. Meaning it was ultimately higher. It was really stupid, but it worked. The first new record with this strat was 12.533 by myself. This was followed by Eli and Skjorchek, who would somehow tie and both get a 12.514. The only AO world record tie to this day. Mia and Prodigy would be getting closer to sub 12.5, but the one to get it first was Pinkie, with a 12.46. Only then outdone by such an obvious time save that we never used before. Insta-Mom. Like on every other platform, you were able to skip the ground pound animation when you insta on the mom button, saving another 0.25 seconds. And lastly, Black Rose gets a 12.247, the last record of version 21.0204.1, the last record of old physics. (21.0217.1) New physics. What does it mean? To make baba bounces an official mechanic of the game, some things had to change. Tilting from standing on the edge was no more. Your bounce depended on your position on the platform. Standing half over the edge gives an edge bounce. Standing even more over the edge gives a baba bounce. The angle and speed for both were now consistent. Instas were now made easier as well, making everything a lot friendlier to run. This version had pretty janky platforms, which didn't affect the new route too much. The route was figured out pretty quickly after release. BBs were now easier than ever, and we quickly found out that a BB on a diagonal platform, yeah, that's fast. Records were traded constantly. Everyone was still getting used to the new physics and trying to optimize the route. But there didn't seem to be too much potential here. We started at 13 seconds and were slowly making our way down to 12.5 again. On a side note, during that time, Happy managed to get all 10 world records, 2 on each stage, making him the only person to do so. It was really cool to see. Anyway, it felt like we reached the end. 12.5, maybe 12.4, but it didn't look like it could get any lower. Back then, old physics felt more skillful. But this was it. Mr. Mario gets a 12.491 on the 26th of February, with a perfect mount. An insta on the last possible frame when falling was just the pound input, the best possible insta. And this was the end for AO any%. Or was it? So how do we save even more time? We saved time before by doing an insta instead of no insta. So how about we do that again, this time on diagonal? The problem with that was always that you would hit this platform. Do it too late and you get past it, sure, but it's too slow. Do it at the right time and you hit it. But if you do it at an even righter time, just a little earlier, suddenly a small window allowed you to be ahead of the platform. On March 1st, Hawkeye beats Mr. Mario with a 12.359. The first sub 12.4. On March 5th, Smol Ame would finally get added to speedrun.com. It's been a good time with the spreadsheet, but finally it was out of order, and it was time to move. On the next day, 21.0306 released with another leaderboard reset. This time, Insta Diagonal was the goal right away. The first one to get it was Hawkeye with a 12.453. Followed by a 12.338, beating his previous time. Pinkie would be the first to beat Hawkeye, a 12.321. Scotjack followed with a 12.317. I got a 12.297, the first sub 12.3. Hawkeye would beat me with a 12.283, and lastly, I had a 12.267. And now this was it. This is truly the end of AO any%. It couldn't get much lower than this. Surely nothing could come now. I personally never believed in cycle skip. In fact, it was my very first message on the Discord. After some time you just don't think about it and no one really tries. Until Psycho claims he has found it. A way to go even faster. We all knew the stage. We all had a rough idea of how you could possibly do it. But the problem was in the details. It was so close. There had to be some way, but we just couldn't reach high enough to diagonal. On the same day, Happy messaged me on Discord, asking if cycle skip was really going to be possible, or if he should just ignore it. I showed him how close we were, but something was missing. A miracle. Not much later, and Happy posted this into the Discord. It was surreal. It had to be photoshopped. But it was very real, and it was a 40-second recording. Not a day has gone by and Happy really pulled it off. 30 minutes to figure it out and fail once, and then another 40 seconds to get it. This was our basis to figuring out cycle skip. On the same day, Happy suddenly left the Discord. The new world record was now 10.977. After that, ChikuTaku decided to take over the office, starting with a 10.95. So, how do you cycle skip? It ended up being as precise as we expected. It was discussed so much that we ended up numbering the platforms that were used in cycle skip and refer to them by the numbers to this day. You need the Insta BB on 1. You hit the aerial BB on 2. You bounce on the far left on 3. You land on 4 to tilt it and then Insta. You bounce on the right side of 5 and then on the far left of 6. The step on 4 was incredibly crucial. You had to land, tilt the platform, and then Insta. This extra speed made cycle skip possible. This was cycle skip. This was the time for ChikuTaku to shine. Finally, progress was now a lot slower than it used to be, but it was steady. ChikuTaku would introduce Insta Diagonal again. This time we didn't have to worry about a platform in the way. Somehow Pinkie managed to get world record once during the ChikuTaku reign, a 10.632 on June 20th. A few more players managed to get decent cycle skip runs, but ChikuTaku completely dominated cycle skip. During this time, Happy would miraculously join the Discord again, 2 months later. The lowest time achieved by cycle skip ended up being a 10.563 by ChikuTaku on the 24th of July. Obviously, even cycle skip wasn't the end. There was one more thing. On the 24th of July, yes, the same day ChikuTaku beat his own world record, he noticed something odd in one of his attempts. A bounce that was much higher than the others. Higher than a regular bounce, and even higher than a boosted bounce. This was almost twice the height of a regular bounce. But how? Well, the mystery didn't exist for long. Psycho figured out how to do it really quickly. We quickly tried to figure out new skips. spots where super bounces were viable and saved a lot of time. There were a few different ideas for Ame's office, but we finally settled on one route. Happy and Skojek both put in a lot of attempts right away, and suddenly we had runs with super bounces. Just not good ones yet. Obviously, there was a lot of potential. The first new world records weren't extremely good, but they came quick, and they all came from Skojek and Happy. First, a 10.138, then a 10.039, and finally 9.998, the first sub 10, set on the 27th of July during the stream of the second episode of the Smol Ame podcast, Smolcast, featuring Happy. But it wasn't over. Happy followed up with a 9.909, and Skojek on the same day after a good rest set 2 new PBs. First, 9.854, and because 1 SB wasn't difficult enough, we set a run with 2 SBs and insta diagonal, 9.24. In such a brief time, out of nowhere, for the third time, the records were lowered at incredible speeds. And it stayed here. For 5 months, the record remained unchanged. In August, we would get a current version, 21.08.31.1. In November, REDRING joined the Discord and started speedrunning the game. And on December 27th, Skojek would finally be beaten by no other than Happy with a 9.228. Very important to note here is that this run does not include an insta diagonal. In other words, sub 9 was possible. A few players tried out the 1SB route successfully, but good times with 2 SBs remained something almost exclusive to just 3 players. Skojek was the first to do it. Happy was second, and just 2 months after starting, on the 21st of January, REDRING would join them with an impressive 9.398. 4 days after Red got his first 2SB run, Skojek got his next 2SB world record, beating Happy by 3 milliseconds. 3 months passed, and now it was time for the child to show what he can do. Red already has displayed his incredible potential, but he also had the commitment to play more and more, when no one else was playing the stage. He was not just getting better, he was also getting good runs, and his first world record on the 12th of April, a flat 9.2. Again, for a few months there weren't any new world records. And suddenly, something just clicked. The motivation was back. Red was first, 9.128 on the 3rd of September. The first, 9.1. Same day, Sai got his first 2SB run. Skojek followed with a new PB on the 4th. Red got another world record, 9.111 on the 5th. Skojek beat his own PB 2 days later, a 9.184. Happy got the first 9.0, a 9.091. On the 15th, Red got the second 9.1, 9.041. Only 42 milliseconds were missing, and to this day they still are. This is where the record stands. This was the world record progression of stage 1 of Smol Ame. Ame's office any percent. countless records by countless record holders across countless versions within 2 years of this game's existence. We know that sub 9 is doable, and we have test runs that are sub 9. We just needed someone to actually do it. We are almost there, but for now, this is it. The game has many other stages to offer, with many interesting ideas, records, strats, and their own history. But no other stage truly comes close to this one. We are also waiting for the final version that was teased 1 year ago. If you're interested in the game, and maybe want to take a look at the other stages this game has to offer, feel free to check it out and make sure to download it for a better experience. Even if you're not speedrunning the game, consider maybe joining the Discord. This is it from me, and thanks for watching.